Interior, the sportatorium. Night. Kevin bounces off the ropes, building up speed, crisscrossing the ring, back and forth, back and forth. Furious. Possessed. 19 words written and 45 seconds of screen time. This is all it took to be transported from the comfort of my seat into the mind of our shattered hero, Kevin von Erich, in the 2023 masterpiece, The Iron Claw. A semi-loose retelling of both the beloved wrestling family, the Von Erichs, and the dark cloud that preyed on them, infamously known as the Von Erich curse. But how did this happen? At this point of the movie, we've already been through disappointments, heartbreaks, and unfortunately deaths. So how does a single, seemingly simple shot strike such an emotional exclamation point to this moment in the story? That is through the use of one of the greatest tools in a filmmaker's arsenal. A skill, when done correctly, builds a cemented bond between the audience and the subject. That is the subjective camera. So, what is it? As opposed to an objective camera that showcases neutral information such as an establishing shot or most wide shots, the subjective camera is a shot that places us into the emotional state of a character. Now you may be thinking of a point of view shot, and yes, you'd be right, but there are many other ways to get into the character's head without actually getting in there. Think Miles Morales nervously looking down as he sticks to the side of a building. Peter Parker's words of wisdom is echoing in his head. He sees the busy city street below. He releases, with shards of glass following, but instead of framing him descending into the city, we see him rising. But then we cut back to him falling, the camera shaking. We feel the uneasiness with Miles Morales. But then, he spins his web, tilts his head back, and once it secures a landing, he successfully swings through Manhattan for the first time, finally completing the leap of fate. These shots allow the audience to feel these moments with Miles Morales through the use of framing, focus on both Miles and his obstacle, and camera movements. And sure, Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse is an animated feature, but the artists used the same technique, the subjective camera. Now, the Iron Claw is filled with shots and sequences that are great examples of this, but what makes this particular scene so special is how director Sean Durkin and director of cinematography Mátyás Erdély masterfully executes this tool in a way that's very simple, but highly effective. So let's break it down further to understand the impact of these 45 seconds. To do this, we're going to have to understand three aspects that make this scene so powerful. First, we will need to define what Kevin von Erich is doing, and more importantly, understand the wrestling psychology behind it. Second, we'll take a trip outside of the sportatorium to recap the disappointments, heartbreaks, and deaths that led us to this lonely moment. And finally, we will dissect the scene and show how the expert use of the subjective camera brilliantly attaches us with Kevin's emotional state. So let's start with our first task, defining the scene in terms of wrestling psychology. Kevin bounces off the ropes, building up speed, crisscrossing the ring, back and forth, back and forth. The ropes are important in wrestling, and unlike other contact sports like MMA and boxing, they're a device to elevate the momentum of a match. Running into or being thrown to the ropes, which in wrestling terminology is called an Irish whip, is used numerous times across a wrestling card. This is common practice, so it's important for a wrestler to know how to approach, land with their backs, and bounce off them without slowing down the pace. This is called running the ropes, an art in itself that is essential in any wrestler's arsenal. There are wrestlers like Rey Mysterio and Braun Breaker, whose finishers and signature moves can only be executed or propelled by understanding the most efficient way to approach the ropes. Knowing how to utilize them is key for in-ring psychology, and even though it may seem like a simple move to someone new to wrestling, it's a difficult practice a wrestler must master to condition themselves for the ring. Now remember, we are talking about a contact sport that deals with slams and aerial maneuvers, which means moves, both offense and defense, need to be practiced to ensure it's performed effectively and safely. There's a trust between wrestlers to execute maneuvers that look devastating to fans while securing the safety of each other. The movie perfectly showcases this by showing the brothers training and going over move sequences moments before a match. Wrestling is all about collaboration, so there are only a few drills Kevin can practice on his own. Similar to the mat drills he does in the next shot, running the ropes is really the only practice he can do, alone, just him in the ring, or more specific, the ropes. A simple detail, but it's important to have this in your mind when we're thinking about Kevin von Erich in the scene. Still, the action itself doesn't explain the expert use of the subjective camera and the shot. We still need to understand the emotional state of the protagonist to allow us, the audience, to connect with him. For that, we're going to have to understand where we are with Kevin at this point in the movie. Or more importantly, where his mind is at. Kevin bounces off the ropes, building up speed, crisscrossing the ring, back and forth, furious. Let's start at the beginning. In the 1950s, we're introduced to Fritz von Erich, Kevin's father, after a match with the eyes on the big ticket, the NWA Championship. He lugs his family along to matches which includes his wife Doris, a 7-year-old Kevin, and a 5-year-old David von Erich. Through the setup of the film, we not only understand from Fritz that wrestling is a lucrative hustle, but we receive this information with Kevin. Wrestling is a ticket to provide for the family. We then fast forward to 1979. The Von Erich brothers have doubled in size, with Carrie off training for the Olympics and Mike pursuing music. They live on a ranch, living a seemingly peaceful life. Kevin and David perform under Fritz's wrestling company World Class Championship Wrestling. And although Fritz never won the NWA Championship, he was able to create the WCCW, with sold-out events being held at the Dallas Sportatorium. Kevin is a rising star in the promotion, with the Texas Championship title over his shoulder, thousands of fans cheering for him, and the next in line to challenge for the NWA Championship. He's a hard worker and tries to impress his father, even though, unbeknownst to him, he's being underpaid in compared to the other wrestlers. Still, we see how much his brothers mean to Kevin. He looks out for them and acts as a father figure Fritz fails to be. As we progress through the film, we understand what wrestling and family means to Kevin. During his first date with Pam, a woman he met after an event, he mentions his desire to get a ranch for his whole family, his career, but most importantly, his love for his brothers. Still, underneath all this warmth, he acknowledges the true antagonist of the story, the Von Erich curse, a superstition that originated from Fritz changing his last name from Atkinson to Von Erich and causing the death of his older brother Jack Jr. at the young age of 8. This is the first time we hear Kevin's vulnerability and the weight he carries in his life. This causes him to break, but is quickly reciprocated by an embrace from Pam. This makes him uncomfortable and offers up new information to the audience. Kevin has never felt this compassion before. We get accustomed to Kevin and his dynamic with his brothers, and other than a slight competition with David taking his spot to be the next champion, they have a wholesome life. Carrie joins David and Kevin in the ring and perform as the Von Erichs to much acclaim. Kevin and Pam get married, and we learn Pam is pregnant. A joyous occasion for Kevin, but as his family begins to grow, the Von Erich curse finally starts to seep into the story. On this same night, he finds his brother David throwing up blood. David chalks it up to a bug he picked up on the road, but Kevin pushes back, saying he's pushing too hard. He should slow it down, put his health before wrestling. Over a toilet filled with David's blood, we finally hear what wrestling really represents to Kevin. It's time he gets to spend with his brothers. David passes away in Japan to a stomach rupture a few nights before he was scheduled to beat Ric Flair for the NWA Championship. The curse then becomes stronger as we progress through the film. Carrie goes over Kevin to bring home the gold, but loses his leg in a drunken motorcycle accident. Kevin's son is born, but changes his last name from Von Erich to Atkinson to protect him from the curse. Mike starts to wrestle, but ends up injuring his shoulder, which leads him into a toxic shock coma during a routine surgery. Kevin's depression causes a rift between him, Pam, and his newborn son. Mike wakes up with brain damage, but after realizing he's no longer the man he once was, he takes his own life. Kevin then completely stays away from his son to not stench him of the curse. All this, the pain of losing 2 brothers and helping rehabilitate a frustrated Carrie, the pressure from his father, his distance to his new son and wife, brings him to the ring to train for a title match for a belt that has not only been looming over his family since he was a child, but is a physical representation of the Von Erich curse. There's no excitement to step into the ring, no brothers to help him train. It's just him now, alone, in the home of his father's company, running the ropes. Now, with all this information, let's dissect the scene to understand the use of the subjective camera. Kevin bounces off the ropes, building up speed, crisscrossing the ring, back and forth, furious, possessed. The music is somber, and the background where thousands of screaming fans once existed is replaced with an endless void. The darkness is only fought off by warm lights from the rafters of the sportatorium, pouring down, blanketing a shadow over Kevin, showcasing his impressive physique, but engulfing his face so we can't see him. The beginning is slow, but then he launches himself off the ropes, colliding with the opposite side of the ring, quick, building momentum, excellently running the ropes as he approaches them, crashes with his back, and propels towards the opposite direction. His speed is unhuman. Kevin runs seemingly with no destination. He hits both ropes with force. He's, as the script emphasized, possessed. The hard-working, loving Kevin is now unrecognizable. All we are left is with a husk preparing to compete over the symbol of his misfortunes, the NWA Championship. We cut to the next scene mid-action, only to assume that Kevin ran well over the 45 seconds on screen. Without the understanding of wrestling psychology and the background of the events prior, it's still a powerful scene. It's beautifully composed with each filmmaking decision executed masterfully. There are numbers of ways this scene could have been presented. The edit could have been frenetic, using each time Kevin lands on the ropes a way to cut to past moments, fueling his speed. Every time we hit the ropes, we see David hunch over the bowl, or Mike injuring his shoulder, or Kevin training Carrie, or the NWA title. Maybe an ambiguous shot of Kevin running with the camera panning into the empty office to showcase the ever-lurking presence of Fritz. All these are arguable uses for the subjective cameras, since it locks us with Kevin's emotional state. But no, the genius is in its simplicity. From the time Kevin stretches to the last time he slams his back towards us is all one take. No cuts, just the camera capturing a splendid performance delivered by an Oscar-deserved Zac Efron. He is trapped by the ring, in the venue that hosts his father's company. Everywhere he looks around would be a reminder of his family's misfortune. Even the drill he is doing is a reminder of the loss of his training partners, his brothers. Framing this at a medium shot, it allows the camera to focus more on the body rather than his face, which is barely noticeable. It's just him and the ropes. We're able to feel this because of the placement of the camera. Kevin launches himself from the ropes, but notice how the camera reacts. Its focus is solely on the ropes. We still see Kevin running to and fro in the background, but when he's furthest away from us, he's completely out of focus. We can barely see his face, and the only time we can get a focused image of him is when he's slamming his back towards the ropes. Or better yet, towards us. The camera stays in place, so the prime focus of this shot is his only training partner, the ropes. By not following Kevin with the focus of the camera, or rack focus with him, we are able to feel both the momentum as he hits the ropes and the emotional weight now on his shoulders. The camera also doesn't move. It isn't shaking, panning, or zooming in, so it adds a level of loneliness to this shot. It truly feels like Kevin is alone as his thunderous bare feet echoes off the walls of the sportatorium. Let's go back to the focus of the shot. Usually, when a subject is in focus, the audience can register it as the prime point of the shot. This gives us an idea where we should put our eyes, and traditionally, our eyes are fixated on the main subject or action of the scene. But that's the power of this use of the subjective camera. Our attention is on Kevin, but the focus is on the ropes. The ring took everything from Kevin, so as we see him disappear into the background, we are still in his mind. The camera's only focus on the ropes because he's trapped by the ropes. We are meant to stay with him because all Kevin sees is the ring in front of him. And the haunting nature of watching him run the ropes is no matter what, he is trapped, ricocheting himself in the ring to condition his body to win the ultimate symbol of the Von Erich curse. Let's quickly take this image of Kevin out of focus and compare it to a scene when we first truly connect with him, the scene of his first date with Pam. Here, he explains that the championship is like a job promotion. his love for his brothers, his ambitions for the family living together, and breaks down when he speaks about Jack Jr. Up to that point, this is an emotional breakthrough for Kevin. Another important note in this scene is that he sort of brushes away the family curse as a silly story. Cut to the sportatorium with no brothers to train with, a broken marriage, a curse in full effect, and a match for his father's title. We're left in the ring with him feeling each emotional land from the ropes. This is what makes the subjective camera so effective. It defines the relationship between the subject and the obstacle in a simple but creative way. The scene is powerful, and it comes at the perfect time in the movie. With the way it's executed, this could have been the opening shot. Fade in to see Kevin running. It defines the tone and the theme of the movie well. This is a wrestling story, but it's not a pretty tale. Smash cut to him running mat drills while the title card pops up. It still works, but holding it so it comes right before the big fight allows us to better emotionally connect with Kevin. It's true mastery. The name Iron Claw is fitting for so many reasons. Sure, it's Fritz's finisher, but it goes deeper than that. Iron Claw is a maneuver where he wraps his head around the opponent's head, squeezing into their temples until the opponent submits. A move Kevin only uses when he loses his cool with his match against Ric Flair. Fritz, the wrestling business, and the curse has Kevin in the Iron Claw, and many times we see Kevin tapping out for the bell. This movie is truly a masterpiece, not just as a wrestling fan, but a cinephile as well. Zac Efron, the cast and crew, made a beautiful piece of art that should be celebrated. Side note, hats off to the real Kevin von Erich. He truly is a fighter. Until next time, be good to each other.